recording.
Okay, Jeff.
Okay, good evening. I would like to call the June 7th, 2021 meeting of the Narragansett Regional Agreement Amendment Committee to order. It is now 5:07 p.m. So the first item on the agenda will be the approval of the April 29th, 2021 meeting minutes. I know that those were sent out, and I hope that everybody had a chance to review them. So with that said, I would take a motion to approve I'd like to take a motion to approve the April 29th, 2021 meeting minutes.
So move.
Okay, and I actually missed who that was.
Tim Toth.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And do I have a second?
Second, Carter Terenzini.
Excellent. Thank you, Carter. So we will do a roll call, and I will start with Sheila. And I hope I don't miss. Yep.
I abstain. I wasn't here last month.
Oh, this is the same old thing. I can't.
Oh, okay. All right. Tim?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Christine? Christine
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Thank you, Christine. Linda Ellis?
Yes.
Thank you. Hank Mason?
Aye.
And Mr. Mark says yes. Okay, so the next item on the agenda will be the old business, and it is a discussion on the quorum. And I believe, Mac, are you gonna lead us on this one?
Actually, well, I don't know. That was kind of your issue here. I can, yes.
This
Fine.
was on the quorum, the discussion that we.
I'm just, let's see.
Huh?
I'm just trying to, just gonna pull it up here, that little note.
So there was just so everybody knows, there was a question once meeting regarding the number of members for a quorum and for voting on in this committee. So
Do the Mars gentlemen count toward that?
do they count towards the voting?
Right.
No. It's only the members of the committee, the voting members of the committee. No.
So how many voting members are we?
We just did this. It was 12 with one alternate.
Right.
Right, I should change, I'll change this here. So Susan, do you want to share with us? You have some news about members?
Oh,
Okay.
I just was informed last week by Amy Guthrie, who serves as a member of the advisory committee for Templeton, that she'll no longer be an advisory committee member. I did reach out to the committee. They have a meeting, I think, tomorrow night, so they're going to appoint someone else to serve on this committee. And I spoke with the folks in Phillipston. They're in the process of getting a new town administrator or person to work for the selectman's office. So Kevin Flynn will not be serving in that capacity, but we just don't know who that replacement is going to be at this point.
Okay.
So we're expecting that there still will be 12 then?
If we get those replacements, there should be, correct.
Linda, do you have a question?
Yeah, as of this time, he is still in that place. So, Kevin has not been replaced at all. So he is still serving in this capacity.
But he's not working in that position right now. So I think.
I think he is, but I
Oh, he
know,
absolutely is not. He's
I
been
know
let go and escorted out.
I am pretty sure from my understanding at all the select board and finance committee meetings that he is still in place, but his appointment is only till June 30th of this month.
Okay, then
Maybe
my
next
guess is by
weekend.
the next meeting, which if it's the next meeting is next month, we will likely have a new person in that position,
Yeah,
serving as a Phillipson representative, I mean.
So given that there are hopefully will be still 12 members. So are we thinking that majority being 7 is a reasonable quorum?
Yeah, I would think so.
I'd say so. I think Carter has a question. His hand is up.
Well, go ahead, Carter.
I was just going to suggest that we follow convention, which is, if it was a select board of 5, there'd have to be 3. I don't know what the school committee follows. You have an even number. What is your quorum, Jeff? Of 8, 5? So I think if we had 7 here as a quorum, that would certainly be agreeable to me. And then the majority of the 7 carries the motion, or the majority of those in attendance, because the committee is 12, notwithstanding whether or not all seats are filled.
Jeff, maybe if there's more discussion, fine, at some point, could you take a vote on that?
Yeah. Yes, it is. I mean, is there any further discussion on that? I'm actually fine with that. So I guess I'd accept a motion to.
I move that we accept 7 members as a quorum for our committee.
I hear that. Who is that? That was Hank?
Hank,
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yep. And do I have a second on that?
Linda Ellis has her hand
Oh,
up.
yeah, Linda, do you have a question?
what is like the standard for how many should be in a quorum? Is it a percentage?
It's usually at least 51%.
Right. So is that over 51%?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'll talk to you about it.
I'll second it.
That's pretty standard for most meetings, that they're at least one more than the average, or than the halfway point.
Okay, so Hank made the motion. Is there someone to second it?
Carter Terenzini seconds.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Carter. So we will do a roll call vote, and I will start with Sheila
Yes.
and Tim,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes,
Christine,
yes,
Linda,
Yes.
Hank,
Aye.
and Mr. Mark says aye. So that's unanimous. Okay. And, oh, you know what? The agenda is down, so
I can just mention, if that's okay,
that's fine.
the rest of our old business is, we have 2 issues that we've debated over the last couple of months that Jay will lead us on. And then I would like to go over all the financial things that we went over last time and see if we can get consensus on that. And then with whatever time is left, we'll tackle the rest of the documents that you have the changes, potential changes in the rest of the document. So I think we're moving along here if we can get consensus on these last couple of things.
Okay. So Mac, are you gonna go to the
Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
Here, share it, okay. And just so I'm clear, Mac, it's still the June 7th one, 2021, the one that's in the shared folder. Is that what we're
Yes.
going off of? Okay.
Yes. However, I have a document that I wasn't able to use last time that has some extra highlighting on it. It's exactly the same wording as you have.
Okay.
I just thought I would go over this front page again here. So anything you see in red, any language in red is new language. Anything you see in yellow is what has been discussed in the past or what we're going to discuss tonight. The language in blue is what you voted on at the very last meeting. And you'll see there are several words and phrases that are highlighted in the blue. I just want you to look to make sure that you agree with what I did based on what you voted on last time. The language in blue we'll have a strike through, and that's language we're proposing to strike out from your current agreement. And the language in purple is just notes from us that it have nothing, they're not part of your regional agreement. There's just a note. And I should have on there, although this is more confusing, but anything in black is what's in your current agreement. So in black nothing has been changed. So we'll talk about that as we go along. So we've made it down through, we have two things to stop at. And this is one, okay, Jay.
Yeah, so as we, good afternoon, everybody. So as we previously discussed, there's this remaining question about the quorum section. And the highlighted sentence in yellow is what we very much hope to resolve today. So the amendment committee has some options here. The amendment committee can also not change anything and leave things the way they are, okay? So and if the amendment committee wants to leave things the way they have always been, then what we would do is just take out the sentence that's in yellow. So that's one very clear option. Second clear option is that you leave the sentence that's highlighted in yellow. And what it would mean going forward is that a majority vote, and the way this is written right now, it would mean all votes, majority votes would have to include approval votes, at least one approval vote from each member town. So it's a way of requiring that the communities work together and so forth. And that's another option. And that's probably the most stringent one. And then there's a third option, and I'm going to need Mac's help with this because I cannot.
If you wait just a minute, I'm going to share my whole screen. So I have both documents up here.
Okay.
Let's see if I can do this here. Okay, hopefully you can see both of those.
Okay. Yes. So thank you, Max. So on the document on the right, this is the third option, and this is a menu that we're rolling out for you. We talked about it before. This comes from another regional agreement from a two-town district, regional district in the Berkshires. And this, one of the ways they went about it was to say that a majority vote, all majority votes don't require votes from each town, but these specific items do, okay? And I'm not gonna, you can read it as well as I can, and we shared this with you ahead of time. So it's a way to sort of say, well, this is a really important issue. I'm just gonna take an example. Let's say you're hiring a new superintendent, one of the most important things school committees do. And for that decision, final decision, this says that there needs to be an approval vote from each town. There are some other things here that are a little bit more specific to that particular district, like the last one, in terms of accepting municipal gifts. That was kind of peculiar in a way. But some of these are financial. You know, one is obviously to amend the agreement going in the future. One was about legal issues in excess of $10,000. The other was about property. If the district ever incurs debt for capital purposes, and then terminating employment with an attorney, and then terminating or initiating employment with a superintendent, reconfiguring grades, closing a school. Closing a school was also an issue in this particular district. And one of the things that they were interested in is making sure that the small town was not disenfranchised going forward, because they kind of felt that way about one of their elementary schools closing. And then the last two are about, please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Jay, I think Linda has another question. I just don't want to go too far ahead before.
Yeah, I
Linda,
just
you have
wanted
a
to run
question?
through quickly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Sorry. I think this is so important that I think that more members need to be here to really review this. I think it's super great. You got another model but I would definitely not feel comfortable voting on this tonight. And I feel that it's a lot of information to digest and to think about for both towns. And our selectman is not available tonight. And definitely, and who is that model from, Jay?
It's from the Adams Cheshire Regional District.
Cheshire, thank you.
And Linda, let me just say as well that, this information is in the shared folder. So, all the members can view it before, view it and digest it before our next meeting.
Yeah,
If I could just add a couple of things. First of all, you wouldn't have to take any or all of these bullets. You might have different suggestions of something if you wanted to, but these are just examples. Obviously, it's somebody, they might not be relevant to you, but also I think you've been in possession of this for 2 months, this information. So I would have hoped that people would look at these things before the meetings and so that we don't have to go through another meeting in order to have people vote on it, because it is available ahead of time.
I know that, and you and others know that, but it has a different flavor when you're in discussion with everybody in the different teams. And you guys do a very fine job of, clarifying. And I think that without everybody that should be here, this is a lot of legal language. It's very important information. I know that our townspeople would really appreciate a lot of thought before going forth on something like this.
I'm wondering, Jeff, whether you ought to think about whether you want to have anything there. As Jay started off, the highlight in yellow on the left.
Yep.
You may not want anything there, or you may want that yellow thing before you even think about this other list. So maybe this group can maybe think about that, whether you want to have any conditions in which both towns have to vote.
I think Carter had a
Can I-
question.
Yeah, Carter, do you have a question or comment?
I do. First, I need to ask my select board member if he is in general agreement that there are some items that perhaps deserve the vote of both communities as a measure of goodwill towards the other community and inclusion. So there's some, agreement from the two towns on some major issues, not all issues, but some major issues. And if he is, then I would like to speak to a couple of these items.
I absolutely am in agreement and support that, but I think the way it's written in that red that's highlighted yellow, that is almost a given where the composition is 6 members from each community. So to get to the majority, we do have someone from both communities has to be present to vote.
So I think that we need to define 2 types of votes someplace. And where that would happen, I don't know. In one community, we had what we called major departments and minor departments, and it wasn't meant to be a slur. It was just, there was a different level of approval that was required for major actions and a lesser level of approval for minor actions. And those aren't necessarily the right words. That's the concept. That said, I think that this could be skinned down substantially. Voting to amend the original agreement, sure. Filing suits, okay. Acquiring properties and incurring debt. I think that those acquiring properties, I just think that can be slimmed down and simplified. Incurring debt, I don't have a problem. Both communities should support that. Establishing or terminating employment contracts. I'm not sure why legal counsel is in here. And I'm not sure why some others, business administrator, that are the appointments of the board aren't in there. Special ed administrator, business administrator. I think that could be collapsed into one. I don't understand why voting to accept a municipal gift for education purposes. If Templeton, for some reason, wanted to give monies to, and I did this in the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District, where Spencer gave the school district $250,000 one year to establish a pilot program on behavior modification. East Brookfield gave 0. I don't know if East Brookfield would have voted no, but I don't understand why one community, if it wants to give money to the district, can't just do it, why that becomes a major vote. So I think what I'm hearing from Tim is that from the select board perspective, the idea that there are these two classes of votes for purposes of goodwill certainly merits some consideration. But I do think that the list can be substantial. I'm not going to say substantially, can be collapsed and cleaned up and simplified.
Yeah, so can I follow up on Carter's comments? I think a lot of worthwhile things were said there. First of all, please understand that this list is suited to the peculiarities of another district that has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I think some of these things feel a little strange. And just by way of example, the last bullet, they were concerned about something. It most likely is a non-issue for you.
Right.
It's just on the list because that's where it came from. It came from this district. Okay.
Right.
But
And,
I also think that if you, I mean, for what it's worth, if you go this route where you identify specific issues where you want the towns to vote together, this could be significantly pared down. I mean, I'm just going to throw out an example. Amending the agreement. One of the other things I'd mention about the second and third bullets here is that, and also the fifth one, is that this amendment committee was co-chaired by an attorney. So there was a little bit more concern with legalese than might be appropriate for you. But I think that the capital debt, amending the agreement, hiring a superintendent, closing a school, those are some of the ones that, to me, if you're going to do this, jump out as maybe the 3, 4, 5 things that you might land on. I think some of these other things can be. I'm not sure they apply to you. I just wanted to show them to you.
yeah, I spent 30 plus years in the Berkshires and a substantial number of those in Adams, North Adams, and Pittsfield. So I have some familiarity with the conflict between the conflicts within those two communities. I would like to suggest that we, decisions are made by those who show up. And we're not making a final decision here tonight. But I would like to suggest, Jeff, that we poll the members as to whether or not they support the concept of this major and minor. And again, this is probably not the best phrasing. I'll leave that to the folks from Mars, but that we have these two classes of votes, some of which do require of at least one vote from each community.
I think that's
And I would actually absolutely agree with that, God. I would also, in the interest of moving it along, I'd like to say that we, whittle this down, to what we discussed for the next meeting, with some of the things that we just talked about. Like I say, I think we should do that.
And that was going to be my next suggestion, that we of blow through it and take a quick, poll temperature of the group. We're just walking through them to see if some could be collapsed, some could be ejected, if you will. But if the concept doesn't have support of the group, that would be a wasted effort.
I think that would be helpful, Jeff. If the group could take a vote on if there are 3 options here: erasing the yellow thing, adding the yellow thing, or going with this list of other suggestions. If you could come to that conclusion on that, then we can work on whatever is left.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just from the discussion, it sounds like we're going to end up going with this new thing in erasing the yellow with the red text. In place, we would put this new draft of suggestions. Is that?
Yeah. Does your group feel comfortable voting? On that?
Christine has her hand up.
Yeah, Christine.
Hello. Just first of all, based on what you last said, I would say we leave the yellow sentence and say in the following cases.
Okay.
And then I had a question as to whether or not, like just the general overall budget is not listed here because we have the joint town meeting process if the towns don't agree on the actual numbers. Is that correct?
Yeah, the
Right.
budget vote, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the budget vote has its own statutory
Okay.
requirement.
It
That's why.
requires a 2/3 vote by the school committee.
So
Okay,
that,
thank you.
that automatically requires that the towns are together on the budget proposal.
Okay.
Good
And
question.
Carter, you have another,
I do. First, I disagree that the types of votes should be in the quorum. The quorum is the quorum is the quorum. I would respectfully move that the Mars be directed to create 2 classes of votes, with one of those classes of votes requiring 1 vote from each member town. And in that section, they can speak to the votes on each issue, but I respectfully don't believe believe it belongs in the quorum section.
That's a good point, Carter.
Yeah, we can set it up that way.
So that would be my motion, that there be 2 classes of votes and that one of those, and I'm gonna leave to Mars how to name those, because I'm gonna keep calling them major and minor, and I don't mean to minimize the budget. You know, the budget isn't on the list, and that effectively becomes a minor vote. But that would be my motion, Jeff, to try to move us along.
okay. And do we have a second for Carter's?
Second,
Okay, thank you, Hank. Do we want to, okay, so actually, let's do a roll call vote on that, and then I'm thinking we want to go down the list of draft suggestions. Yeah, in just to keep it moving, we'll do that. So, Sheila,
I agree.
okay, Tim,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes,
Christine,
Yes.
Linda,
No,
Hank,
aye.
and Jeff says aye. So, okay. So
Jeff,
the motion passes. And so do we want to, kind of go through and whittle this list down, or do we want to, and I mean, again, there are things that we can move off this list, such as the thing at the very bottom. So why don't we do a 1-for-1 on this, and we can just do comments as we go through it if we want to change any of the language, okay? That makes sense? Okay.
I would support the first bullet, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna go right down rather than doing a vote for each one of them.
Jeff, can I make a couple of suggestions?
You
when do
certainly
this?
can, yes.
I think that to just focus on a few things that could possibly be left out.
Okay.
What comes to my way of thinking as I've gotten to know you folks a little bit is the second bullet, possibly the third. The establishing employment with an attorney, I don't think that that's critical for
Yep.
you folks.
Okay,
And the last one, certainly about the gift. I mean, if you
Yes.
could knock 4 or 5 out of this, it becomes a little bit more, it becomes easier for people to get their arms around.
And if I could add something too, Jeff, whatever you whittle down tonight, if you all could be thinking about that before the next meeting, we can add some things that you or your constituents come up with and add it next time.
so I totally support that, and I think that we should do that. So I would like to take a motion to whittle this list down just as the way that we just talked about those I think it was 4 items. And then, as you say, going from now through to the next month, we can review it. And if anybody feels that there's we need to make some additional changes at the next meeting, we can do that. So I would take a motion to for the next vote for the folks at Mars to modify this list with the changes as discussed. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion for that?
And what are the changes? I'm not sure.
It
Jeff.
was to remove the last bullet item.
Yeah.
I also suggested the second one.
Yeah, the second one, and I know it was the legal one is let me see, was it the third? Which one is that?
I don't know how people feel about acquiring property, but it seems to me that that's going to be largely covered by statute. But if you want to
Yeah.
leave it in there, you can.
Yep.
I don't think you need this kind of a special vote to hire an attorney. I think that one can come out.
And I think those were all of them. So if that wasn't too confusing.
That one right there, Mac. There you go.
Oh, is he, oh, he's highlighted as we go. Perfect. Thank you.
And
So
I don't
we'll
want to go
vote.
too far and generate any disagreement here, but it seems like those might
Nope.
not be, they could, if they come out, they simplify things.
Agreed. So can we take a motion to amend that list as edited in front of us?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Do I have a second?
Second,
Second,
Thank you. Okay. So Sheila,
yes.
Tim,
yes.
Carter,
Yes,
Christine,
Yes,
Linda,
Nope.
Hank,
Aye.
and Jeff says aye. So that motion passes.
So well, Susan will send out this list as modified by you just now. And then you can be thinking about it to see if there are things you would like to add next time.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Mac. And again, that will be in the shared drive as well. So if anybody wants to take a look at it that way.
Okay, so I think we have one more language issue that I'm going to try to walk people through. And it's about the cost of repairs. If we can go to that. Yeah, there we go. So this is a lease language, which I think we're all pretty comfortable with at this point. And one of the things that we weren't able to resolve is that any cost in excess of $5,000 shall be considered a capital cost and paid solely entirely by the town in which the building is located. So I think this only applies, people can correct me if I have this wrong, I think this is only about the new elementary school. So one of the things we did as background and to try to address some of the questions you had was we looked up what $5,000 in 2004 looks like in 2021. And I'm going to give you a number. I'm not an actuary or a finance expert, but I just did a quick search on that and it comes to about $7,100. So if you just increased it to cover inflation, the $5,000 would go to $7,100. So further, what Mac and I are asking you to consider is the number in red there, that if it is to consider $10,000 the trigger point for repairs by the town. So it's still pretty low given what various things cost these days. And I think we saw some numbers in a previous meeting about what some of these expenses can be, although that school is new. And it seems like a modest increase, and we're asking you to consider it.
Is there any discussion on that?
Just one comment.
Yeah.
All buildings are physically located in the town of Templeton. As it reads right now, Templeton bears all the expense. And I think this is something that should be pro rata, each community by student. But in my mind, 10,000 is a artificially low number.
I think Sheila has a question.
Yep, Sheila.
Do I remember that the middle school and the high school are owned by the school district, even though they are actually in Templeton, they're owned by the school district?
That's correct.
Yes.
But I also agree that $10,000 is too low. It's just the cost of everything these days. There's not going to be a whole lot of repairs that can be fit under that $10,000 cap.
Well, we'd be happy to, I mean, we can put a number out there for your consideration. I hear what you're saying about the fact that this is a small increase, but we're trying to generate some agreement here so we can move on. But yeah, any other comments?
Go ahead, Linda.
I feel either 7,500 or 10,000 is fine. And sorry, you guys got the school now, so our school, we're paying a lot of money to update it. And we're still paying the other monies to support the kids at the other schools also. So I'm sorry, but we're doing both towns, funding our own upkeep over here. And I don't believe Templeton was holding out any cash.
So this only applies to the regional schools, which would be the high school, the middle school, so.
Read that last sentence in its entirety, sir. If it breaks that number, read that entire sentence, please.
Okay.
Where it says no rental. I'm not clear about which sentence Tim is talking about.
Estimated cost of 10,000 shall be considered a capital cost and paid solely and entirely by the town in which the building is located. That
Right.
is the sticking point we presently have, because at the current, all the schools are in the town of Templeton. I understand what was just said about Phillipston, but that school is no longer part of the district. If we're going to argue Templeton versus Phillipston, we're back to square one.
Yeah.
If we're talking the regional school district, this is where we're discussing. That's just my input on this.
Carter?
So the middle school and the high school are not part of this discussion. They're owned by the district, and whatever has to be expended upon them, once the indebtedness is approved by the board, the two communities have to pay for in whatever manner they choose to pay for it, whether it's within their operating budgets or debt excluded. So this really, at present, covers only the Templeton Elementary School. Truthfully, the difference between 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, it's really just a number that people become a little bit more comfortable with, perhaps. Now, that said, pending changes to debt in other sections, I might turn around and disagree with saying the number is really not that material. But this really is about having a number that people feel a little comfortable with, because there are other provisions in this agreement that cover excess expenditures. So Tim, if there's a number you'd be more comfortable with, I think if you could suggest that, and if folks could get their heads around one, I think we could perhaps move off this issue. And we'll probably end up, frankly, arm wrestling when we circle back to debt and capital expenses.
Yeah, the last meeting, I believe I put the number 25,000 out. I'd be willing to say 20,000.
Are there other thoughts about that number?
I actually think that the 20,000 is a little bit high, and I'd like to see it more 15,000. I'd like to start with 15,000. I mean, and at least open it up and see what the other members feel.
That is what I was thinking as well. I would like to hear from Anne Marie what kind of money there would be available for, if you had 2 or 3 $15,000 expenses in any given year, what would that mean for the district?
I think 15,000 is fair with our $5,000 that we've been operating with for a long time. A lot of the repairs come to just under 5,000. So a lot of that stuff doesn't get passed off to the town. It's really just if you're doing a major undertaking that it affects the town. If you had 3 repairs for 14,500, the district would be in trouble. I mean, we're gonna have to, the higher this number becomes, the more the district budget will have to increase in order to cover those possibilities.
So I can see Carter's hand up, but just to throw in a quick thing.
Oh, that's only because Carter forgot to take it down. My apologies.
Okay, no worries, no worries. To me, it seems like, I agree with much of what has been said here, and that the 15,000 seems like it's an issue that seems well suited to compromise, frankly. And it may not be what, I understand Anne Marie's point about the district budget, but I think 15 might be, I don't know, maybe that's something people can consider, and we can tackle the other issues later in the document.
Sheila, do you have a question or a comment?
Well, to Anne Marie's point about the budget and about trying to accommodate those large expenditures, then would it be better to consider leaving it at a smaller amount and rephrasing it to be who would be responsible for it? Instead of it being the town in which the building is located, it would be a joint thing encompassing the entire school district. And that way it wouldn't have to be this balloon thing in the budget. In case it happens, it would just be dealt with at the time.
Well, I don't know that it's going to be a balloon item in the budget, but the business of distributing the costs to both towns seems like something that is going to get in the way of a compromise, unless I'm mistaken.
The sticking point to Phillipston people that I've spoken with is that for any major repairs or upgrades or whatever to TES, yes, our children are taken there now, but we would have no vote whatsoever on those meetings on your town floor. So we would have no say in whether those repairs are done or whether upgrades are made or necessary. And that's where we would feel very disenfranchised. Taxation without representation and all.
Christine, to that point, if this were to come to that kind of a juncture, I believe there should be a joint meeting with the school district and both member towns, as we have done in the past. But I do hear what you're saying.
Thank you. I just say, Templeton has never been asked to chip in on any repairs for Phillipston, even though many of your students attended there over the years for everybody who needed physical accommodations that were not available at Baldwinville and many other reasons. And Templeton was never asked and never did chip in anything to our building. So that's where we are coming from.
Should we take I'm sorry, go ahead, Carter.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, we've been around on this number perhaps more than it deserves, and I'd like to move that the number be established at $15,000. I will say that, we'll probably have deeper discussions on debt and other apportionments of costs, but I think that my select board member here can support the 15,000 if he's agreeable to that, and I'm hearing the school district possibly, I'm seeing a thumbs up.
Yep.
If there's a potential second, I think that could move us along.
Yep. I know Linda has a question just before I get a second. Linda, do you have a question or a comment before?
Yeah, I agree with Christine. And this is, you guys, you're still doing it to us. You can outvote us tonight too. And this is some area that's definitely sticky. It really needs to be thought out. And people are going to see this and they're going to be angry. But go ahead and outvote us. Thank you.
Linda, it has been on the agenda, right? We've been going around and around with this for quite some time. So,
but all this vote is doing is changing the amount from 5 to 15, correct?
That is correct. Yes, that's my understanding. Yes. Yep.
So we're keeping the status quo as to which towns are responsible for which buildings.
That is correct. Yes, and that is the motion that Mr. Terrazzini has on the floor right now. I'm looking for a second.
And that is for each instance, right? So if there's 2 separate repairs, it's 15,000 for each repair. Is that right?
Yes.
It says, right, it says single repair.
Exactly. So if there's 10 repairs, 5 repairs, it adds up.
Yes, yes.
Jeff, do I understand, maybe perhaps you can correct me about something. So let's say it was at 15 and there was only one repair. I'm just trying to make sure I understand this. Then what that means is that up until 15, the larger town, Templeton, would pay roughly 85% of that number. And the smaller town, Phillipston, would pay 15% of that number, right? Is I right about that?
Correct.
So the cost increase here, even going to 15, is not major. I mean, I understand that there are strong feelings about the school, but we're talking about 15% of $10,000 on a single repair. Just to make a point. I don't disrespect the views that have been expressed.
And Linda, do you have another question or comment?
No, thank you, Jay, very much for trying to point things out. It's just, it's unequal representation again, even in our vote tonight. And I know that the townspeople won't like seeing that.
And Linda, I mean, all we're doing tonight is just, increasing the dollar amount from the
That's a
5,000.
It's a large dollar amount. Like, we
Okay.
just had
Yep.
to do something with our building, okay, that wasn't done. And because of one thing that was repaired, another thing had to be repaired also. That was 2 different situations. So that would be 2 separate $15,000 amounts. It adds up, and explanations don't happen as quickly as they should be either,
All right. Thank you for that, Linda. And there is a motion on the floor. I'm looking for a second.
Second,
Thank you. I believe was that Hank?
yes.
Thank you. So we will do a roll call vote. Sheila?
I just want to clarify, this is on changing that 10,000 to 15,000, correct?
Yeah, actually, I think it's changing the 5,000 to 15,000, but yes,
5,000, okay.
yes.
Then yes, I agree.
Tim?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes,
Christine?
Yes,
Linda?
Nope.
Hank?
Aye.
And Mr. Marks says yes. So the motion passes.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts and deliberation on that. I think we've reached a point, and I guess couple quick thoughts. One is that the budget process is the larger context for this cost increase. So it isn't like this is going to be a secret. As you folks go through your regular budget process and repairs are part of what is suggested in the appropriate section of the budget, that's when there can be some conversation. And I like Tim's comment about if it does require a meeting, then get folks together and have one. So Mac, I'll turn this back to you for the some of the budget sections.
Okay, we did go over the budget last time. It was a lot to digest. And I am using a document that I've highlighted, just like Cliff Notes here, highlighted in yellow. This has nothing to do with the change itself. It's just so that I can speak to it more efficiently. And you can see quickly what this paragraph is about. So I'd like to just mention something about each paragraph. If anybody wants to hold on that to discuss it, fine. If not, we'll just keep going through. For example, the section A, all it just says is you have to follow chapter 71, section 16B. That's a given. So I'm assuming that doesn't need a lot of debate. So there may be other issues like that, but if anytime you want me to stop so we can talk about a section, please stop me. So section B, and again, I should say in preference, not preference, but in ahead of time, that all this writing in red does not change what you are doing. Anne Marie is here. She can speak to anything that it looks like it's a change to her, but this is just trying to clarify what the law says and make sure that everybody, school committee members and staff really know what the formulas are and how to do the assessments. So the budget has to be in section B, separated into operating, transportation, and capital debt. So some people separate it into 4 categories, but most do it in these 3 categories, but that's a minimum requirement. So, and you all know that you have to have the school committee has to have a public budget hearing. You have a tentative budget and a final budget. And then the next paragraph at the top, then the final budget has to be resolved by the school committee 45 days before the first town meeting, but no later than March 31st. And here is where it says something separate about a vote. The vote of the school committee to approve a budget must be by 2/3 of all the members of the committee, not 2/3 of the members who are at that meeting, but 2/3 of all the members of the committee. And then when it goes to the town meetings, it just takes a simple majority in each town to pass the budget. C, we added last time as amended, in case something changed with the Code of Massachusetts regulations. That is the Department of Education's equivalent to laws. The CMR is what their regulations require. So, and this is about if you want to have an amendment to the school committee. It's again, this is pretty much word for word out of the law, that if the school committee wants to increase the budget after the towns have already approved the budget, that's what this whole section is about. So if it increases the budget to any one town or the assessment to any one town, one of 2 things have to happen. And you can see that they have to, within 7 days, tell the towns that they have voted to increase the budget or the assessment. And so the local appropriating authorities have 45 days in which to react. So within that 45 days, a town could have a town meeting and the voters could accept or reject that increase. If 45 days go by and the town has not taken any action, then it is assumed that it is approved. And in the cases that we've seen in different schools, that might be that a boiler blew up after you did the budget and it's going to cost $25,000 or $20,000, let's say. But the select board said it's not worth having a whole town meeting and the cost and aggravation of doing that in order to approve an extra $10,000 in the budget. So we will let the 45 days go by and the budget can, and the school district can increase their budget to accommodate that. So, and then number 2, it just says that you have these 2 choices: either don't vote on it in the 45 days and it's approved, or if the amount for any town is equal to or less than their assessment, then there's no action needs to be taken. So if one of your towns has an assessment, just say of $5 million, and the school system wants to raise the budget, but in one of the towns that doesn't increase the assessment, then it doesn't have to go back to that town for approval because the town has already approved a number equal to or higher than that amount. You know, this is kind of, is that we good so far? All right, just stop me if you need to. So again, if whatever the change doesn't increase the budget or assessment, nothing has to happen. And again, the school committee has to vote 2/3 in order to make that happen. If the commissioner on number 4 adjusts your budget for whatever reason, then you probably would have to the school committee would have to go back and redo the budget, and it would have to go back to the towns.
Mac, I'm just gonna stop you for a second. I think we have a question.
Okay.
Carter, do you have a question?
Good.
If I'm understanding correctly, you're saying if the committee amends the budget, it will send a notice to the town,
Right.
and that the local appropriating authority then has 45 days to act.
Yes.
And if it does not act, it automatically increases the assessment upon the town.
It automatically approves whatever the school committee asks for. Yes.
I don't understand, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't understand how that works legally. Let's take two instances. Let's take an instance in which, for whatever reason, the select board doesn't call the town meeting. Or let's take an instance in which there is a town meeting and one of the town votes it down.
That is done.
How does, I don't understand how by default the assessment increases if a legislative body simply does not act. Is that statute somewhere that I
That's
just don't
the law.
understand?
That's the law. Yes. Well, that's the CMR 603-41.055. That's where it talks about this. This is almost word for word. It is word for word from that.
Okay, I'll review up and defer to the,
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yep.
Mac, if I can jump in for a minute.
Sure.
So it's, in that instance, Carter, it's really important for the select board to pay attention to the timelines. I understand your question. The other thing I was going to mention is that, these increases that don't impact the assessments, more often than not, it means that happens because the committee is using funds from E&D. Okay. And even with E&D, the towns can, because the E&D funds belong to the towns in essence. So non-action or action is also an option on E&D funds, but the E&D funds generally don't impact the assessment.
Right. Yeah.
okay,
Two comments. One also is it could be a grant. A grant might come in July. And
Right.
the school committee would like to spend that money, but it will not increase your assessment. So the select board might say it's not worth having a town meeting. But one of your other points, though, Carter, if one of the two towns does in that 45 days say no, then it can't happen.
Yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't happen, right?
thank you.
Yeah. So 4 is just if the commissioner gets involved, and committee will have to have a new budget. And again, if the assessments are reduced, it just says they're automatically deemed to be reduced to the lesser amount. So yeah, that's one of the tougher parts here. This in blue is what was decided at the last meeting, and I talked with Anne Marie since the last meeting. So what has been happening, and what is current practice, is that the towns give to the district their amount every month, or divided by 12. So we just changed the wording here. Your current regional agreement has it divided by 10. So this just shows it divided by 12. And Anne Marie did talk with both town halls about this. I believe Anne Marie, right?
Jeff,
Yep.
I'm sorry to be a nudge, but I do think
That's
that
okay.
should say less prior payments. I understand it's understood,
Mhm.
but each time you pay 20%, are you not paying basically less the prior payment, each of those amounts?
I think of such share, that's your current language. I think that's meant to say that. If it doesn't, we can change it. So 20% of your total share will be paid by then.
Less prior payments.
Okay, is that,
I'm good either way, just,
no, Anne Marie, would you like to weigh in on that?
I don't think it's less prior payments. I'd rather have Anne Marie answer this than me, but I think it has to
well,
be.
if I can though, we're gonna pay 10% in July.
Right.
We're not going to pay 20% of the entire budget again in August,
Wait,
and we're
you
not
know
going to
what?
pay 30% of the entire budget again in November,
You know
are
what?
we?
Two things. I brought something into this document that has my yellow highlight, which you don't have. And I forgot to change that. It was supposed to be 8.5% a time, but maybe each one of these should say 8.5% of such share. Would that answer your question?
I mean, it should either be the percentage of the share or it should be less prior payments, because we're not going to get to June and pay you 100% of the assessment all over again. And I
Right.
understand that that would be understood, but I just think that we're spending a lot of time to try to get the language right.
Why don't you put that it's like 1/12 of the total assessment that's due each month?
There you go.
I do have one question on that for Anne Marie. Can you cover all your expenses if it's a true 1/12, or is yours much like the town when we have to pay into retirement insurances? Those are front-loaded expenses, and that number might not be accurate.
Well, we've been doing it that way for the past probably like 5 or 6 years, and it works. And the only reason it does is because we don't have teacher salaries in July and August. So we're able to cover those insurance payments that need to be made for July 1.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure we're not backing ourselves into a corner that creating a document we can't live with.
Is
No,
this-
I think it will work fine. And since we get our chapter 70 once a month too, that also like it works for us.
Anne Marie, is that first line, is that, if we say that, is that okay down the line?
Yep, I think that works because that's what we do now is whatever the total assessment is, the treasurer just divides it by the 12 months and sends a bill for each month.
That's a good point though, Carter. It's only been in there for 50 years and that's the same thing in every regional agreement I've ever seen, but I think this is a good point and I'm gonna do this in the future for all ones that we work on. Good point.
I don't think it was egregious as it sounds because the start of the paragraph says the dates on which they are to be paid. So it does kind of make it cumulative. So by November 15th, then you have to have paid 30% or 3/12.
That's what it's supposed to say, yes.
Right. So I think I can see that it could have been misinterpreted another way, but it seems clear to me that this was correct also.
All right, good. All right, we'll change that. All right, so are we able to take a vote on this budget section as amended?
Before I take a motion for that, I believe Mr. Terenzini has another question.
I do. I want to circle back before a final vote is taken on this. Templeton has been working with the school district, and I want to thank the district, Anne Marie, the superintendent, the school committee, to get a draft budget by February 15 and a final budget by March 15. I know that's a little bit earlier than the statute requires, but they've been able to get it done. And I would, on Templeton's behalf, continue to advocate for that. Because if we don't get that final budget until April 1, we don't have as much running time as we need to adjust the town's budget. And so I continue to believe that what we have accomplished for the 4.5 years I was with you, and Jeff, I believe you accomplished it this year yet again, be codified here in that the committee would deliver a draft budget by February 15 and its final budget by March 15.
And
Where is the date? Can you scroll to where the dates are? Matt?
Carter, or maybe Susan, you can check this. My recollection was that we voted on that last time. We had quite a long discussion. Right, that's right here. And I thought your group voted to keep it on March 31st. Am I right, Susan?
I thought we did as well, but I'm gonna have to look back and check that. I do remember having this conversation now, and I thought we had
Yeah.
come to an agreement.
That doesn't mean we can't change it, Carter. I'm just saying, I believe that this group did vote for that.
I understand, but that was the only section, and you're now asking for a vote on the entirety of the budget section, if I understand.
Yes.
Christine, do you have another question?
Yes, please. Was this also the section, I think it's under C, where we had the big discussion about that the notice to the towns had to be sent certified mail? To
Yes.
make sure somebody's responsible that gets acted on in a timely manner?
That's in the assessment section here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's in here.
Yeah, right here. This is on the notice of, it's about debt. You see the highlight in blue?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So that, is that section 5 then that we're discussing, Jeff?
That
Yes.
is section 5. Yes, it is. Yep. So-
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend the draft section 5 to require that the school district present a draft budget to both communities by February 15 and its final budget by March 15.
February 15th.
Anne Marie, do you have a reaction to that or a thought about that?
And actually, let me actually speak to that a little bit before we do. Carter, I know we have talked about this before, and I know that the school committee has got it in there. Part of the issue that we struggle with that, Carter, is we don't get all of the funding information from the state, and it's just a bit of a struggle for us to get that through there. As you did state it, I mean, the March 31st is in there, and the school committee will do everything it can to get it, to get the information to the member towns, as early as they can. But it's very difficult for us to put that in writing and not be able to match it. I think that's the problem that I will say, but I will also, see if Anne Marie has any additional comments on that.
Usually what we're waiting for are, like, the state numbers, the first round comes out the end of January, so that's not a problem, but usually it's the things like the retirement assessment numbers, the insurance numbers. So as soon as we get those, we put it together. The past couple of years, we've been able to meet that deadline. I mean, if it goes to March 15th, they'll just be more of an estimate than the actuals, which I don't think is a problem. So either date works for me. Whatever it says is what I'm gonna work towards.
Jeff, I have a couple of suggestions. Carter.
Just Mac, before.
It's all right.
Let me just see what Linda is, what comment or suggestion Linda has.
Okay.
I agree that, with the budgeting, a lot of this is out of your hand. Anne Marie and Jeff gave good examples, and I agree totally. Sometimes, I mean, look at COVID came, it knocked our socks off, and they can always project and try, but they should have some leeway. This isn't fair because a lot of it is out of their hands, and I think the later date, I mean, with the numbers of October 1 and March 1, the state relies on those, so it's kind of in the state's hands, and then it trickles down to us. So I think to be flexible and kind of project, you kind of know a ballpark figure and just plan ahead. And we can be flexible, I think, in the towns to help out our school in that manner.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments too. I
Yeah,
don't want to cut anybody off.
I think Mac was about to give us some, Jake, and so can I just have Mac take it up and then we can.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Carter, I'm wondering if you would consider a compromise saying that the goal would be for February 15th and March 15th, even though the hard number is still March 31st, so that that it's clear that the school committee, if they can, they should be trying to meet that deadline, but it's not an absolute.
So that kind of dovetails with a comment I had, and one The first one was to Anne Marie's comment. You know, in a tight situation, you might be able to get an estimate to the towns, but this language is not about an estimate. This is about detailed, consistent with DESE and adopted. Okay. So it's not an estimate. And so I have a little bit of a concern about that. And then the second thing is what happens if it is a hard deadline, what happens if it isn't met? I mean, in a technical sense, there's a violation of the regional agreement. Is that something people are going to pursue in a formal way? Is this a motivator, or is this going to be somebody it's going to put people's feet to the fire? Those are the two thoughts that come to mind for me, anyway.
Go ahead, Carter.
And Endeavor doesn't really do much of anything, you know, the committee will endeavor to do X, but it can still do Y. I'm not sure that's really good language in a formal agreement like this, because we already have that gentleman's and gentle ladies agreement. The committee's done it. You know, they've done great work in getting that done. The challenge here is that if the towns don't get the number until April 1, and if the number is substantially above what they had anticipated, they have to get back into their budgets and carve their budget up to meet that and still be ready for town meeting. And in Templeton, the warrant carries the actual numbers. It isn't just to see if the town will vote to appropriate some money. I think that, you know, February 20 and March 20 would allow a little more time. And still meet Templeton's goals. And I will say there's no second on this motion, so it may be dead for lack of a second.
Carter, what is the deadline for the warrant in Templeton?
Well, unfortunately, it's like April 8 or so. I mean, it floats a little bit, but it's very early. And if you don't get the number until April 1, your final number, the town administrator and select board are really struggling to figure out how to meet the gap. And I would, if they had more time to meet the gap, it would reduce the potential of, well, we just can't meet it, so we're just going to fight it. I think if you can give the towns a little more wiggle room and an opportunity to see their way to possibly meeting the number, it could reduce friction on the other side. So I would, Jeff, if you'd be willing, I would amend my dates to February 20 and March 20, pending whether or not there's a second.
Linda, before I go to Mac, Linda, do you have another comment?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about some ideas to help Carter, and I'm thinking maybe, Carter, you could change the warrant deadline. We've done that many times, and it seems to work out. And you know, just to help that school committee and the superintendent, whoever that may be, because you know, good things change after time, and the state is hard to. We can't change them, and unfortunately, we rely on them to trickle down all the numbers for us, and there's factors that we can't control in that district number and having it out earlier. And I know they work so crazy to get those numbers out, but they would only be estimating, and that's, I mean, you can estimate without them having to rush like that. So I think to be fair to them, that number should stay March 31st.
Go ahead, Mac.
Anne Marie, I have a question. How, over the last number of years, has there been a significant difference between your tentative budget and your final budget? So my point is, will the towns have a pretty good idea of what the number is when you give a tentative budget, or does it change significantly?
I think they would have a pretty good idea. It doesn't usually it's just like in my tentative, if I estimate that I'm gonna have a 3% increase in health insurance, by the permanent one, the way the rates have been coming out on the time that they have, I usually have the exact increase that the rates are gonna change. So I can tweak that number a little bit, but it's usually not that far off.
Anne Marie, what was the date that you've been able to get it to the towns recently? I just need a reminder.
This year, we approved the first final one on March 3rd, but because of the ESSER funds, we had to redo our final certified number, and that date was March 17th this year.
Okay. And then in a non, I mean, pre-pandemic, it was around the middle of March when you were able to
Yeah,
do
the
this?
last 2 years, we've been able to beat that March 15th deadline for them.
Okay, thank you.
Sheila, do you have another comment? Oh, Tim, I'll get right back. I'll get right with you.
No, and I'm not familiar with this. Is it possible to change it so that the warrant either doesn't include the number or the warrant only includes the estimate with the final to be provided at the town meeting?
Carter, do you want to answer that?
Sure. There's a reason as to why the warrant has been changed in Templeton to include the actual numbers. It provides clarity to the voters, and it reduces the possibility that numbers are proposed on the town meeting floor that blow the budget out of the water. And I would point out that, so that's why we've done that, and I don't see them retrenching on that anytime because it's worked very well and it's been part of Templeton's financial turnaround, if you will. I would say that February 20 for a draft and March 20 for a final do provide a little more flexibility to the district. And even in a COVID year, Anne Marie's was able to accomplish that. And it's not the numbers from the state. Once you have House 1, for all practical purposes, you have your state number. Yeah, the House might add a little something, the Senate might add a little something. But generally, I've been doing this for a little over 40 years and I've never seen the numbers from the governor except one year when Governor Romney proposed a complete and dramatic transformation of the state pilots and a number of other programs. I've only seen 1 year in which the number went down. Every other year, final state aid has gone up. So I would stand by my proposal that we have a draft by February 20 and a final by March 20.
Tim, did you want to, did you still have a comment, Tim?
Yeah, just a quick comment into Anne Marie's point. The weekend of the 13th was our long budget hearing with all the departments presenting to the Board of Selectmen, to our advisory committee. The school came in the evening of the 15th. And that was still a proposed budget because it had not yet been certified by the school district. And Anne Marie, if I'm misspeaking, please, by all means, correct me. Although the number did not change from Monday through Thursday.
We had given you a proposed budget. They originally voted March 3rd, and the numbers reflected the ESSER payment and your increase in your minimum local contribution. You guys had to vote in order for them to change it and give you a finalized one. So as soon as you guys voted, we gave you the updated number. So the bottom line didn't change. It was just a matter of the funding source. So you technically had the bottom line number on March 3rd this year.
So I'm trying to work with some things that I'm hearing here. Maybe this makes sense, maybe it doesn't. But I wonder if there's acknowledging this business of, what you try to do isn't great for an agreement. What if there's a target date, but then in no event later than, and it moves back by a week, or something close to a week, so that the district tries to get it out as early as they can, but there isn't a violation of the regional agreement, given that they've still got most of March. Maybe it's the 20th, maybe it's the 24th, but would something like that be of interest?
before I go to Linda, I'm gonna ask Carter if, if that would be, agreeable.
We were at the 15th, you're at the 30th, that's 45, that's the 22nd. How about the 24th of the month or the 25th of the month? I would be open to that in the interest of moving this forward. It's just, the towns need as much time as they can, and I understand the school district does also.
Yep.
So if we can come to some agreement that moves it before the 30th to give the towns a little more time, and we can find a number that folks can coalesce around, I think that I certainly could support that. And Tim, could you support some compromise in that area?
Yes.
So if there's a date we can coalesce around somewhere's prior to March 31, so we have a draft.
Well, if we use the 24th date, I'm trying to remember your deadline for the warrant, Carter. That would give you about 2 weeks to work.
Yeah,
with.
so if we call it February 24th and March 24th, I could live with that if others can.
Okay. Linda, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I did. I'd like to move on this because we already voted on it. We already said we'd accept the other date. I know Carter is trying to help his town, and but I have faith that Anne Marie, as long as she's there, will get this out to the towns as quick as possible. They always have. But I don't think, I mean, if the players change in 10 years and they need some extra time, I think some flexibility should be in there. And I think the towns can always be flexible too and hold their meetings at a different date. This way, we already did vote on it and everybody said, yes, we're going to stick with the original date. And Carter seems to be the only one that is very focused on that number. And I see why he would be, but I would rather give the school committee and the superintendent and the treasurer extra time because they have the big job of making that budget.
So we do have a move on it. Is there any additional discussion? I mean, Carter, you did have a motion out there. I don't know if.
There's no second though, so it would die for lack of a second here momentarily.
Yeah. All right, so Mac, why don't we move on from this section?
All right.
Well, actually, this is actually, we're taking a vote on this now, aren't we?
Right.
We're taking a vote on the on section 5. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's where we are on this. So actually, I would, look for a motion to vote on section 5 as amended. Oh, wait a minute. Did I just see another hand up? No. Okay. Oh, I do. Linda, do you have another question?
No, I'll make a motion.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So she has a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Hank. So roll call vote for section 5. Sheila.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Carter.
No,
Christine.
Yes,
Linda.
Yes.
Hank.
Aye.
And Mr. Mark says aye. So that does pass.
All right. Well, given the hour, I think we just need to look at the rest of the agenda, see if there are any other questions. And our goal would be to see if we can add one more date.
Right.
Let me stop sharing here. Stop sharing. I'll put the agenda back up. Share.
Matt, can I jump in here with a word?
Sure.
I think our next meeting is June 22nd. Does that make sense?
Right. That's
Yeah.
what it says on the agenda here.
Yeah, and I wanted to remind folks that that might need to be a 1-hour meeting. And we have kind of a hard stop at 6 o'clock. Because
If I could just interrupt for a second, actually I don't think that date's gonna work for a couple of us in central office. We have our administrative retreat that day. And
okay.
I'm just
So
not
we
sure
need to
that we're gonna
change
be
it
able to
anyway.
swing it. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no, I'm glad you spoke up. So, because that makes, actually, it makes things a little easier on our schedule as well.
Good.
But that means we got to find 2 dates here. Do Mondays still make sense for folks? That's what doing today.
Weren't we doing Tuesdays, the third Tuesday of the month for a bit there?
Third
that not?
Tuesday of the month.
Am I
Yes.
mixing up my meetings?
No,
We were, but then a few got changed. Mondays work fine for me also. They're a little better than Tuesdays, actually.
Okay, how about Phillipston? Do you guys still have your meeting on Mondays? Your selectmen's meeting? Is that Wednesdays?
I believe they all moved to Wednesdays because of Monday
Okay.
holidays.
Okay.
So,
And
how about Monday, the 21st then?
That works for me.
I'm fine with that. And Linda, just go ahead. Go ahead, Linda.
We got a lot going on in the next few weeks. You guys had mentioned that you might break for the summer. Would that be a consideration?
Our admin retreat is actually the 20th, the 21st, and that Monday and Tuesday. Sorry, I think it's a very busy month for us right now, but
It is, it's really, really, like we have meetings like a lot, like every night.
How about the
Well, if we
28th?
stay with Mondays, it's the 28th. The 5th is too close to the holiday, right? No.
Let's try that. What about the 28th first? Do we?
Yeah, that's good too for me.
yes,
It's fine with me. I can do that.
So why don't we nail that for one of them?
okay, if I'd just like to say a little something about these meeting dates. If the folks in each of the towns can really encourage all of your representatives to make it to these meetings, so we can move through this, and there's a lot of items that we're discussing, and I understand not wanting to vote on things because you want to make sure you have representation. It's just really important that maybe you reach out to your townsfolk that are on these meetings and let them know that it really is important that they attend.
Thank you for that, Susan.
Yeah.
Linda, do you have something else?
Yeah, like I said, we have, I know all the boards are having a lot of catch-up meetings, a lot of them with the change in the rules coming out possibly June 15th. That, we're doing a lot of catch-up because boards haven't been able to meet. And then they are looking at committee. So we have a lot going on in Phillipston right now. That's why I was wondering if you were gonna just hold off till like September.
But I don't think we were planning on holding off.
No.
Linda. No, I thought we were going right through.
Oh, I thought that was in my notes.
No. Carter,
So at some point, I know there may be a desire to go back to in-person meetings. And I know that this committee wanted to settle its own quorum. But would we be covered by the remote participation rules of the school committee? I just want to see if that's something we can clear, because I know that I will most likely need to continue to participate remotely. Is that something we can clear from the decks without a lot of discussion?
Carter, I thought that we were covered by that, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to look into that. I think we were covered by it. Tim, go ahead.
Okay.
We just had this discussion as we're about to move our select board back to in-person. There is an ability to work remotely, but you cannot vote if you're not physically in the room, is our current understanding from the governor's guidelines. And we're still researching and making sure we have that right, because the last thing any of us want to do is violate OML.
Yeah.
Carter or Tim, if you get additional information, but Carter, let me look into that. And I will get something out to the committee. Let me follow up with that and see, okay?
Yeah, I would hope that the remote participation rules that existed prior to COVID, which do allow for voting
Yes,
by remote participation, would be intact.
I thought they did, Carter, but I don't want to. Let me just verify that.
Let's just, if we might, Mr. Chairman, make it an agenda item for the
Yep.
next, so we can clear that deck
Yep.
in a recorded meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, part of that, Carter, could also be about when and if the committee wants it to meet in person. So that, and people who want to be remote can be remote, and when do people want to go to in person, if at all? My thought, in order to get some meetings in and keep the ball rolling here, is that the next couple of meetings ought to be remote, is because they tend to be a little more convenient, easier to get to. And for what it's worth, I also like Susan's comment, because when we do get full participation on a meeting, we don't want people to be surprised,
Yeah.
so part of it's also staying informed. The 20, can we assume the 28th is gonna work? Susan, does that work for the district?
It does, and I'm gonna put it on the calendar right now.
And then we need a July date. Third,
Keep it a month out for the 26th.
Yeah.
I'm putting these on the calendar for invites for folks, and I'll just send you guys the invite and update it as we get closer, but just so it's on your calendars.
Can we just hear from the group here, though? Is the 26th of July look okay?
and
That should be fine.
The 26th. Okay. So that's Monday, the 26th?
Yes.
That's fine with me, Jay. I'm fine with that. The other thing too is I just want to follow up on your comment about the remote meetings for the next couple meetings. I think also with the people's summer schedules maybe not being around, I think it would be helpful for that as well. People could still do it remotely if they're traveling over the summer. So
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
that's a good
point.
suggestion.
Good point. Okay, so we've got the 28th of June and the 26th of July.
On that same note, could we set a date for August as well, since it is in that summer span?
Sure. So the 23rd?
Oh, wait a minute. Where's that July?
Works for me.
23rd, it's okay for me.
Yep, that's fine.
Good on my end.
All right,
I think we ought to just assume that those next three will be remote, and then
Yes.
I think it's conceivable that by then we should be in good shape. One thing just to keep in mind about where we're going with this, I don't know if both of your towns generally have fall town meetings. Can anybody tell us that?
Not every
Usually.
year, no, not normally.
No, okay. So then this isn't going to get voted on until next spring, right? Spring of 2023?
Two.
By the time you do DESI review
22,
and
yes.
everything else, it's not gonna make the fall.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a consideration that we need to keep in mind. If there were both town meetings in the fall, it's conceivable that we could make it for that. If that's not an option, we don't have to worry about it.
okay.
Alrighty.
Great. All right, well, thank you. We got some things accomplished tonight. It's good discussion.
You just need a motion to adjourn from someone.
Yep.
So moved.
Second,
All right. Thank you. So we will do a roll call on the motion to adjourn. Sheila,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes,
Christine,
Muted.
Yes.
thank you. Linda,
Yes.
Hank,
Aye.
and Mr. Mark says yes, so that is unanimous.
Very good. Good night.
Great.
Good night,
Thank you,
folks.
everybody.
Everyone,
Night.
Thank you.
have a good night.